Shall I share my presentation, sir? Is it visible to all? Okay, sir. Yes, thank you very much, Gavni sir. And good afternoon to one and all who are present over the screen here and joined my session today. Today, I am going to deliver a talk on how to write analysis and interpretation of data for practical. You can also take this analysis and interpretation of data for providing data for research projects or any other projects that you want to send here for publication. Okay, so I am Dr. Vaibhav Adhao. I am working as associate professor in Dr. Rajendra Gode College of Pharmacy, Malkapur. I am also a certified trainer of Sant Gadge Baba Amravati University, Amravati in soft skill development. So today I would like to cover the contents on my topic as data, then data analysis, interpretation of data, and graphical representation, and steps to writing a report, and some useful phrases and keywords that we would like to cover under this heading. Okay, for interpreting our results. That is quite important. Okay, so before going to start, I would like to ask what is mean by interpretation? Because whenever we are delivering the word interpretation, we think it is a quite complicated word that we want to check here. But this interpretation is nothing but to understand the meaning of particular data that we are going to present here. So before starting with this presentation, I would like to ask a very common question to all of you, that I'm representing one symbol in front of you having a different meanings. Okay, It's visible. All of you know this thumbs up. Okay, it's having different meanings. In some cases, we are giving it as a like. In some cases, we are giving it as a all the best or best of luck. In some cases, it is all right or okay. Okay, so different meanings are given for similar symbol. So how the someone, those who don't know the past of why he is giving the symbol like this. So it is complicated for a observer to understand the meaning of this particular symbol. So there are several number of methods to represent our results and analytical parameters in the publication as well as in research project or while giving the inferences to your practicals that you are writing. You all of you doing the practicals very carefully and taking the observations from your practicals and trying to write the results, and from results you have to conclude your results over the inferences what you have taken from your practical, what is the output that you have to write in a proper wording, in proper manner. So this is a quite importance. That's why the thinking that we have to consider what is the exact meaning of this particular sign or what is the exact meaning of our particular results that comes under study. So while starting with the introduction of our data means results or research results, we can use word here, from which the inferences are drawn. Okay, data means research results from which inferences are drawn. Means we have to conclude our results into the particular inferences. The examples, numerical results like scores of tests, statistics such as means, percentages, and correlation coefficients. Then analysis means a categorizing. You might know about the term analysis. We, in terms of pharmaceuticals, we are using a separation of components into the different units. Okay, mixtures we are separating here by different means of chromatographic techniques. So here we have taken the meanings in generalized means. Analysis means the categorizing, ordering, manipulating, and summarizing of data to obtain the answers to research questions. Whatever the research questions were being asked by the researcher, that were getting its proper answer or not, and finally the interpretation that nothing but it takes place the result of analysis makes the inference pertinent to the research relation studied and draw the final conclusion about their relationships. Okay, so this is a small definitions and introduction to the data analysis and interpretation. So in detail, we will go with the data here now. Data is known to be a crude information and not the knowledge by itself. तुम्हाला जर मी एखाद्या वस्तूचा डेटा देऊन दिला, if I hand over the data of any kind of research study that you might not earlier done. Okay, so here if I given the data, you are not getting a proper information or knowledge from the data only. So the sequence of from data to knowledge varies from data you have to gather first information what is given in the data. Then from information you have to correlate it with the facts or the available results, and finally you will get the knowledge of your particular results. Means from data you are not getting directly the knowledge. So data is a crude thing or crude information that we have to convert it into the knowledge. So this is the sequence from the data to knowledge. From data we have to convert it into the information. When information becomes facts, that facts gives us the final knowledge. So data becomes information when it becomes relevant to your decision problem. The researcher must have few questions in his mind, that how the data can be interpreted into its final conclusions or inferences. So when we have the data becomes information when it becomes relevant to your problem. Means whatever the decision you are taking in your problem, that becomes information. Second thing, information becomes fact when the data supports it. फॅक्ट तुम्हाला सांगायचं झालं तर फॅक्ट डायरेक्टली आपण सांगू शकतो का वी शुड हॅव अ स्ट्रॉंग प्रूफ. Once we have the strong proof here, then and then only the information can becomes a fact. Then facts are what the data reveals. Means whatever the things mentioned in the data that should be revealed in the fact, that is to be considered here. And however, the applied knowledge is expressed together with some statistical degree of confidence, and this fact becomes knowledge when it is used in a successful completion of a decision process. Whenever you make a certain decision, you should have the facts over it, then you should have a proper data over it, and this data to be collected, converted into the information will becomes a fact whenever it is correlated with the data, and finally it becomes a knowledge. So this is a massive amount of facts which are integrated as a knowledge. Knowledge हे वेगवेगळ्या गोष्टींचं आपल्याला असतं हे सगळ्यांना माहितीच आहे. So while having the knowledge of different things, we should correlate this knowledge with the facts in a reverse manner. Then facts are associated with the information, and information is correlated with the data presented in a particular study. So this is the thing we have to take in interpretation. So, while studying the interpretation, the usefulness and utility of research findings must lie in a proper interpretation manner. If you didn't give a proper interpretation or inferences to your result, your study cannot be understood by the someone else who is going to observe your study. So that's why initially I have taken one thumbs up. If you are pasting a photo on Facebook and someone is giving thumbs up to you, and instead of thumbs up, if the symbol is not originated, those people have to write like. But someone has given the thumbs up and is taking in mind like all the best. Is it necessary to give the all the best for photo that you are uploaded on the Facebook? Then second thing, if some student is going for attending the examination and this examination you are showing a thumbs up and you are thinking he is giving us a like for the examination or okay for examination, isn't it will be good for us? No, not at all. Okay, so whenever we are giving any kind of symbol or results, it should be interpreted. So means if a student is going for examination, we are showing a thumbs up for giving all the best for your exam. And if a student is going for or posting his photo on Facebook, we have to give a like for it. So interpretation is a most important thing while delivering a presentation towards the study of our result. So interpretation is a basic component of research. After collecting and analyzing the data, the researcher has to accomplish the task of drawing inferences followed by report writing. This is the important thing in our today's topic. So this has to be done very carefully, otherwise misconclusion may be drawn and whole purpose of doing research may get vitiated, means it is being diverted from our study. It is only through the interpretation that researcher can expose the relations and process that underlie his findings. So this is one of the things that I want to share with your interpretation. So now interpretation refers to the task of drawing inferences from the collected facts after an analytical and experimental study. And the task of interpretation has two major aspects that I want to cover here. The first one is the effort to establish continuity in the research through linking the results of given study with those of another. So whatever the practical work or research that you have did here, you have to link all these efforts with your study, with those another studies have already established. And the second fact is the establishment of some explanation concept from your studies to the other studies. Now, why interpretation is important? Why interpretation is important for the researcher? Because through interpretation the researcher can help to understand the abstract principle that works beneath his finding. So interpretation gives us clear idea to abstract the principle that the researcher want to convey his message to the reader or observer. Then, through interpretation, this he or she can link up his finding with those of other studies having the same abstract principle, and thereby can predict about the concrete result or concrete inference or concrete world of events that he want to shown to the observer. Then this way the continuity in the research can be maintained. So this is the kind of inference that we have to study. Now how the establishment of interpretation can lead to a different set mark or bull marks that we have to establish here. So the establishment of explanatory concepts that can serve as a guide for future research studies. It opens new avenues of intellectual adventure and stimulates the best quest for more knowledge. Means it is creating a more knowledge for the researcher as well as observer. Researcher can better appreciate only through the interpretation why his findings are what they are, why he is doing this research. Means we have to accept this thing, we have to show what is the interpretation to be covered here from the this desk. Now it helped to understand the real significance of his research finding to other researchers. Means whatever the study is being conducted by a researcher or scientist, he has to express his study to understand it by the other researcher, so that he will be elaborating a study and explaining his concept to the common people. So that's why this interpretation is quite important. So while carrying out the interpretation, there are certain precautions that we have to take into consideration. Even if the data are properly collected and analyzed, a wrong interpretation would lead to inaccurate conclusion. Means you have did completed your activity in proper manner, you got the results of very excellent manner. But if you are unable to express your results in a proper manner, if you couldn't able to write your results and inferences in proper manner, it leads to inaccurate conclusion. Okay, so that's why this precaution we have to take. We have to write the precaution very carefully. Okay, we have to write this interpretation very carefully. So it is absolutely essential that the task of interpretation to be accomplished with the patience. Okay, means while writing any interpretation, you must have the patience in an impartial manner and in a correct perspective. Your perspective should be clearly mentioned over it. So this is precaution that you have to take into the consideration. So for correct interpretation, what to be done by the researcher or a scientist? A researcher must pay the attention over the points. The first one is at the outset, researcher must invariably satisfy himself that in what case he has to satisfy himself. Swatala satisfaction, self satisfaction is more important while writing the interpretation, which is in a correct manner. Why we are doing this? Okay, the data are appropriate, trustworthy, and adequate for drawing the inferences. How he should satisfy himself? The data should be appropriate. It should be a trustworthy. A real data should be there. There must not be a manipulation in his data, and adequate drawing of inferences. Then data reflects the good homogeneity. नाही तर आपण सांगायचा प्रयत्न केला, एखाद्याला आपण मित्राला स्टोरी सांगत आहे आपल्या पिक्चरची, आपण पिक्चर बघून आलो आणि त्यामध्ये आपण मिक्स केलं, दोन तीन पिक्चरचं ब्लेंड केलं, तर इथे आपल्याला ही स्टोरी लक्षात येते का? नाही. मीन्स देअर मस्ट बी द होमोजिनिटी. Means we have to concentrate on the topic that we are moving here. Okay, then the proper analysis has been done through the statistical methods. So there are several numbers of statistical methods we are studying in analytical studies. Oh, so we have to get a proper analytical statistical method for correlating our studies to the observer. And second point is the researcher must remain cautious about the errors that can possibly arise in the process of interpreting the result. Means with the patients, he must be cautious while presenting the errors to the students while presenting his interpretation into the final inferences. Okay, so these precautions you have to take here. Now, the data interpretation methods, it includes mostly the most important key is proving or disproving your hypothesis. So whatever the hypothesis is taken into your mind, that you have to take into consideration whether it is proving your results or not. Okay, so this is the thing you have to take into consideration. It is important to select the proper statistical tool to make useful interpretation of your data. Means proper selection of statistical tool is the most important method for giving the data interpretation. If you pick an improper data analysis method, your results may be suspect and lack the credibility. In such a case, your manuscripts or your publications or your research project may reject due to improper data analysis method or improper data interpretation of results. Now, these methods of data interpretation: direct visual observations of raw data. After organizing the data in proper formats like tabular forms, then after making graphical representation, after calculations using numerical and statistical methods, and you have to do interpretation of data after mathematical modeling. Means all these five important steps you have to follow after the completion of these things. Means a direct visualization observation of raw data, after organizing the data in the tables, after making the graphical representation, after calculation using numerical statistical methods, and after mathematical modeling, you have to interpret your data. Now, how we can visually scan the data before doing any statistical analysis of the data you have collected? Look closely and thoroughly at the data to determine the best method of organizing it. So by visually scanning the data and recognizing it, you may be able to spot the trends or other anomalies that may help you in your analysis of data. Means while going thoroughly through the results or data that you have collected, just go very carefully and cautiously from your data that you have collected. Use proper statistical tools to give the significance. Now, statistics is one of the important thing, that statistics is a science assisting you to make decisions under uncertainties. Whenever we have the uncertainties, ifs and buts are there, if there is yes and no, if we have to prove or disprove, we have to agree or disagree the results. This is the statistical tool by which you can prove it. So based on some numerical and measurable skills, you can prove the statistics by science assisting you to make decision under the uncertainties cases. Decision making process must be based on data, neither on personal opinion nor on any belief. Whenever you are making a final decision, it must be based on data. इट इज नेदर ऑन पर्सनल ओपिनियन. आपल्याला डेटा काय दिलेला आहे त्याच्यावरच आपण रिझल्ट इथे दिला पाहिजे, की पर्सनल ओपिनियन वर दिला पाहिजे. नेव्हर नेव्हर गिव्ह युअर डिसिजन ऑन पर्सनल ओपिनियन. What the data says, because data gets converted into information gets converted into facts, and these facts becomes finally knowledge. I already shown you that graph how the data is to be converted into the knowledge. That is important thing. Now, the statistics is based on some principles and methods that we have to take into consideration here. It consists of designing studies, then collecting data, then presenting and analyzing data, interpreting the results, turning the data into information, and finally the data-based decision making. So this is the methods or principles which are based on the statistics, how to choose the different analytical methods in the statistical process that we have to consider here. Okay, so data analysis is one of the important terminology that we have to use here while representing our inferences, while interpreting our results. So data analysis is the process of systematically applying statistical and or logical technique to describe or illustrate and condense and recap and evaluate our data. So this data analysis consisting of systematic approach to choose statistical tool, apply our logical technique to put the illustrate or describe our results or evaluate data. There are several analytical procedures by which we can provide a way of drawing inductive inferences from data and distinguishing the signals, the phenomenon of interest from noise and present in the statistical data, that is statistical fluctuations from our data. So this is data analysis which is of importance. Then next important parameter, while representing data, your data must have a graphs. The graphical representation of data is a most important thing while representing any kinds of results of your analysis. So you might have studied the different types of graphs that I'm covering here. So in front of you, the graphical representation are mostly categorized into the five basic types of components graph. The first one is bar graph, second one pie graph, line graph, fourth one is scatter plot, and last one is histogram. So your study of research must be included with the graphical representation, how the graph is being generated to your analytical parameters. Okay, so there are several different types of charts that I want to show you here. You might have seen this in different Excel sheets. You can able to prepare this graph. So this Excel tool is one of the most important tool for the analyst to elaborate your data into the final results. Okay, and once you conclude your results, you have to conclude your results with a proper inference or interpretation. Until unless you do not have proper data, proper graphical representation, your research or practical outputs are not up to the mark. So while considering this is the chart types that I have to use here. So we will see one by one. I'm going very shortly. I'm not going in detail of statistical method, but I want to take a look over the different parameters or graphs that must be taken into your study and results and discussion or inferences. Okay, so this one is first one, pie chart. The pie chart will be shown like this. It is a contribution of 100%. 360-degree angle is being representing 100%, and out of which the percent chart is representing. Here I have taken 150 number, and this 150 number is represented into the different percentages in first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Then this another type of pie chart can be shown here with a different color, that is three-dimension pie chart is shown here with uses of different spaces, MySpace, Facebook, Orkut, Hi-Fi, Xanga, Live Spaces, Classmates, and etc. etc. So this is another type of pie chart. Then another chart, that is area chart. You may get the area in some concerns here. So cars, trucks, motorcycles, bicycles, these charts will be shown here. Or in analytical terms, you may have the different areas of different peaks in the chromatography. You may get the different area charts, then column bar charts, at having the different columns in it. This column and bar both are taken into the consideration. Then segmented column bar chart, in single column the segments were done for the item 1, item 2 and item 3. This is a segmented column bar chart that we have to take into consideration. Then frequency of polygon, or we can say it is a histogram, how the frequency will get. From histogram we get the maximum frequency, which is the topmost result from our analysis. तुम्हाला मी जर सांगितलं particle size analysis you have to do, and you are getting a several numbers of values. So the given substance having a which maximum frequency of value, you are getting this value from the histogram, and this is the line chart or graph. From you can say a correlation coefficient you can draw on from the line chart here, so as to get a statistical tool for the linear analysis. And finally the scatter plot, which is also giving a confidence interval level and correlation coefficient from the different species here. Okay, so these are the charts that I want to show here. A bar chart, and stacked bar chart, which are having the ratios of male and female, a number of months male and female patients have been enrolled in the HIV care by the age group. So there are different stack charts. These are the horizontal. That's why the word used here, a stacked bar chart. So these are the several presentations that I want to cover here. A line chart, we have to use such type of line chart in the clinical research as well as in the resolution studies. We are also using such a cumulative presentation of the line chart. So now we are moving towards interpreting the data, how the data is to be interpreted. Okay, so now adding meaning to the information by making connections and comparison means we have to keep in mind how the different studies were made here and how this study is to be considered here for interpreting our results. Okay, so while interpreting this data, one should explore a causes and consequences, how the results or how to interpret data is to be valuable for the researcher or observer that we are doing worldwide. Okay, so it is being carried out in the relevance of finding, reasons of finding, consider other data and conduct the further research. So by these four steps, we have to carry out here the interpretation in the relevance of finding, does how it will be related to the other. So does the indicator meet the target? Whatever the target set by the researcher, whether it meets to the target or not, that we have to consider here. Then how far from the target is it? टार्गेट पासून हा किती दूर आहे, अजून आपलं टार्गेट भेटलं की नाही हे पण आपल्याला इथे काढावं लागतं इंटरप्रिटेशन मध्ये. How does it compare to the other, means to the other time periods or other facilities, how it will be compared, and are there any extreme highs and lows in our data, that also we have to consider why relevance of finding to the ourselves. Then interpretation, which is having a different findings or reasons of finding with the possible causes, means supplement with expert opinion. We should take a expert opinion on our results from our field, whether our data which is we have interpreted or represented is correct or up to the mark or not, that we have to take into consideration. Then others with knowledge of program or target population we have to take into consideration from this field. Then consider the data, other data, how we can compare our data with the other data which are available with the वर्ल्ड. ओके, वर्ल्ड रिसर्चर सोबत कसा डेटा हा अवेलेबल आहे त्याच्याशी सुद्धा कशा रीतीने कंपेअर करायचं आपल्याला ते इथे सांगता येतं. So how we can compare here? Use routine service data to clarify questions, calculate nurse to client ratio, review commodities, data against client load, etc. etc. So such a type of data we have to compare with the routine service data to clarify our questions. Then use other data sources from internet or search engines. We can compare our types of study which were already conducted for the other cases. If you do not have such a type of relevant data, you can proceed with your new study or invented study. That becomes an invention for the other people and that becomes a final knowledge to acquire by the researcher. Then further conduct a further research study. If you didn't achieve your target, then go for further research. Data gap, then conduct the further research. If you have a gap between your target and your findings, then go for strict and a thorough research. A thorough research will give us a final fine research inferences that will be the up to the target or not. Then methodology depends on questions being asked and resources available to show here. So conduct this further studies. Now data interpretation is one of the important thing. While doing this data interpretation, one should ask these four questions to himself. ओके, स्वतःलाच विचारायचे हे प्रश्न की आपण कशा रीतीने हे डेटा इंटरप्रिटेशन करणार आहे. सो दिस फोर क्वेश्चन्स आर व्हॉट इम्पॉर्टन्स, व्हॉट इज द इम्पॉर्टंट इन द डेटा. डेटामध्ये जे आपल्याला भेटलेलं आहे त्यातलं काय इम्पॉर्टंट आहे ते इथे लक्षात ठेवायचं आहे. देन व्हाय इज इट इम्पॉर्टंट, व्हाय इज इट इम्पॉर्टंट जे आपल्याला डेटामध्ये भेटलेलं आहे, व्हाय, व्हॉट इज द इम्पॉर्टन्स, what is झालं what नंतर why, then what can be learned from it. तुम्ही जेव्हा why चा आन्सर काढता, why चा आन्सर भेटल्यावर तुम्हाला what can be learned from it to the others हे इथे एक्सप्लेन करायचं. तुम्हाला त्याचा आन्सर भेटलेला आहे, जर तुम्ही हुशार आहात तुम्ही तुमचा आन्सर काढलं, पण ते बाकीच्यांना एक्सप्लेन सुद्धा आपल्याला करता आलं पाहिजे. अँड सो व्हॉट, whatever the learning from it, so what, remember one thing, the interpretation depends on the perspective of researcher. Okay, perspective of researcher, whatever the interpretation is given here, it is always depends on the perspective of the researcher, how the researcher has interpreted his results. And one important thing, why, because interpretation, whenever we are giving any kind of inference or results, finally we should always ask why to the result, why I am giving this result, why this inference is correct. We should ask to ourselves why this result is correct. Okay, means we are getting our final results. So while doing interpretation, one must understand how the effective data analysis to be done here. So keeping your eyes on main task, managing your data, engaging in the actual process of quantitative as well as qualitative analysis, then presenting your data, then drawing meaningful and logical conclusions. All these parameters we have to take into the consideration while doing a different data analysis. So as to carry out effective data analysis, one should keep his or her eyes on the main task, never deviate from one point to another point. Then manage your data, how the data is collected, collect it, compile it at one place, and then manage it. Then engage in the actual process of quantitative or qualitative analysis. Whatever the things are given, there are different things: quantitative data analysis and qualitative data analysis, QDA. This is the new terminology which is originated nowadays. QDA, a qualitative data analysis, is required for all the observers or publisher, those who want the quality of work. Okay, then presenting your data is one of the important thing, to how to present data, how to write the statement. It should be a grammatically correct, in what tense we have to write it, in complete tense we have to complete our data representation, then drawing the meaningful and logical conclusion from the data analysis. So this is the effective data analysis that is to be considered. Now we are moving towards why do we analyze data. आपण जो डेटा काढलेला आहे, what is the necessity to analyze data. The purpose of analyzing data is to obtain usable and useful information for the others. This is the most important purpose. Whatever the data we are taking, it should be usable for others. That's why we should use here the purpose of analyzing the data, which is obtain usable and useful information for the other researchers. The analysis, irrespective of whether the data is qualitative or quantitative, the analysis must be, I have written may, but I must say it is must describe and summarize the data, then identify relationship between the variables, compare your variables, then identify the differences between the variables and forecast your outcomes to the different variables. So now we are moving towards different steps of writing a report. Okay, so different steps in writing a report. One must consider this following step while writing your report or finally concluding your session. Research reports are the product of slow, painstaking, and accurate inductive work. So while giving this, we should must consider the following steps, usual steps that are commonly taken into the writing a research report or final inferences to our interpretations. The first one is logical analysis of subject matter. One must know a logical analysis of particular subject matter. If we are doing the analysis, analytical part over the HPLC and we are talking about the HPTLC, that is not a logical thing. Means you are doing a logical analytical matters. Then preparations of final outline. We have to prepare a final outline first. Then go for preparation of rough draft. Once you complete your final outline, then try to write your rough draft first. Then go for rewriting your rough draft and make it polish. आपण काय करतो, रफ ड्राफ्ट लिहितो आणि फायनली त्याला पॉलिश करायचं सो ॲज टू बिकम अट्रॅक्टिव्ह अँड इन्फॉर्मेटिव्ह फॉर द other observers. Okay, then go for preparation of final bibliography, means references that you have collected from different sources. You have to collect it in proper manner at the end, and finally writing the final draft. This is the last step of writing the data to the final draft. Once you get the final draft, you can send it for the publication or review of reviewers towards the different houses. Okay, or towards your superiors. You can send it for the final revision process for the reviewers. Okay, so this is the final draft. So now I would like to take one case study that we should take into consideration how to write or interpret our results and how to discuss it in our final project. So I would like to share here one case study or research project report that I have submitted and accepted in American Society Journal, Pharmaceutic Journal, which is having a more impact factor here. So here I would like to share here one case study. Now here we have did this collaborative research work with Dr. N.M. Mahajan sir from Dadasaheb Balpande College of Pharmacy Nagpur and ours Dr. Rajendra Kode College of Pharmacy Malkapur. So this is one study which is related to the improvement of gastric acid stability of well-known drug pantoprazole by doing a crystal engineering technique, which is a comparative study, and it is having a thorough analytical parameters that we have considered here. Okay, so I'm moving here towards the results and discussion parameters. So while giving the results and discussion parameter, one should look here while results and discussion. First parameter that we have covered, a phase solubility study. The phase solubility study is given here and is shown in the line graph here. You can see here, dear students, you can see here a line graph. This line linear equation is also given in the line linear graph. So how the linear graph is mentioned here that we have to consider, means all the parameters, statistical parameters were used here. It is shown in the graphical representation for particular drug. A line representing a molar concentration and dotted line represents the linear molar concentration of drug, and from this linear equation is drawn for the correlation coefficient. Then we did here saturation stability studies, saturation solubility studies is also done. So whatever the data we got here, it should be presented in proper manner. In earlier form, we are represented with the graphical representation like a line chart here. Now here the tabulation. The table should be representative. No need to represent the or no need to read the data whatever given in the paragraph. When a researcher must understand the thing from the table, the whatever I have highlighted here, you can see here a crystal type, formulation code, saturation stability, solubility, and folds increases, how solubility is increased there, and all are given here in plus minus. You can see here the results are given in plus minus sign. This plus minus 0.5, plus minus 0.16. This plus minus is nothing but the standard deviation, mean standard deviation from our actual results, means we are carrying out a different results here. Then micromeretic properties are studied there, means all Hausner's ratio, angle of repose, compressibility index, all are studied under the standard mean deviation. Then compressibility studies were done here. It is also shown in the tabular form with the compressibility pressures, how it can withstand here, thickness, hardness, which are the common parameters for the tablets. Then production yield and drug content determination of crystals. This case study includes the percent results. Again, these results are shown on the drug content on percent weight by weight volume with a standard mean deviation given by the plus minus sign, because standard deviation is one of the important thing all of you have to represent here in the case of your studies. Then FTIR. Now, analytical parameters that we have to consider here. These FTIR studies are overlain over each other to us to compare the formulations with a proper drug here, and these are shown in different colors. Different color indicates the different theme here. A black representing the pure drug of pantoprazole, then green color representing one co-crystal with the PBC, and another red color representing the pantoprazole with the nicotinamide acid here for the co-crystal study. And finally, here the IR spectrum of another type of batch of formulation which is compared to the pure drug of pantoprazole in this manner. So you have to overlay here. Then scanning electron microscope, you are getting different images from microscope image, and we have to compile these image in such a manner, means a researcher or observer can understand it clearly in single image. आपण चार different इथं scans घेतलेले आहे. हे चार scan comparatively एक सोबत इथं कलेक्ट केलेले आहे आणि ते कलेक्ट करून ऑब्झर्व्हरला इथं दिसून पडतात. This is another SEM micro graph here for the formulation that we have taken in different angles, though it is being compared and researcher to the observer. Okay, then SEM is also covered here. Formulations we can say here. Then we are moving such a images in this. Then DSC again, overlay as taken for the different analysis. These are the five different trends and overlays was shown here. Then X-ray powder diffraction, again we have taken it from the different sources and arranged in a proper manner to compare their over in single window. म्हणजे आपल्याला जो डेटा इथे दाखवायचा आहे, it should be in a single window. This is also a dissolution profile, a cumulative drug release to be considered here from the drugs of this origin. And finally we are taken the HPLC chromatogram which are arranged here over one by one in the stacked manner so as to get the proper comparative results with the pure drug here. So this is the kind of case study that I want to show to you people, so by which we can finally conclude here and move towards the final presentation. Okay, so while this is the case study we have to do here, now what are the different keywords and phrases for interpretation that we have to take into our final writing? As reflected in the table, there was one should take such a type of sentences or phrases while writing the final inferences or results and discussion parameters. So as observed, there was indeed. Delving deeper into the figure number and table number we have to show here. Table 1, table 2, table 3 indicates that table represents that, then has significant relationship with it, and it may be constructed that on that basis one should consider here. Okay, so likewise one should use here the different writing skills and sentences to the different results and interpretation. There are certain another sentences that we have to cover here. The illustrative graph shows that in explaining this result, it can be stated that is particular terminology we have to use here is significantly related to or is found to be of determinant of and registered positive correlation with or is revealed to the influence, like that we have to cover here. So here with these phrases, there are lots of phrases you can get here from the Google or internet services, so that it will be beneficial for your studies and your people. So here I would like to conclude my today's session with one quote by the George Eliot, that all meanings that we know here depends on the key of interpretation. That's why the interpretation is the most important thing in our analytical tool. So that's why this interpretation to be always correlated with the analysis. Thank you very much. And finally, I would like to say one thing: accept each and everything with why. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or doubts, you can write it in the chat box so that I can see the chats, or sir will communicate with me here for giving the answers. So over to you, sir. Yeah.